Hi guys. So in order to start this discussion and analysis of this story, we are going to give like a brief introduction, and this introduction will be a biography of George Orwell. So George Orwell was an English novelist and essayist that commonly criticizes totalitarianism and supports democratic socialism. So George Orwell was born in Bengal in 1903, and his father was a British official in the Indian civil service, and his mother, which had French descendancy, was a daughter of an unsuccessful teak merchant in Burma, located in Myanmar. So after returning with his parents to England, he was sent in 1911 to a preparatory boarding school on the Sussex coast, where he was distinguished among all the students by his intellectual brilliance. Next, in 1922, Orwell went to Burma as an assistant district to the Indian Imperial Police, where he served in a number in many country stations. And at first, he appeared to be a model imperial servant. However, since he was a little boy, he always wanted to become a writer. When he started realizing all this damage and all of the acts against the will of the Burmese were taking place, by the British, he felt really ashamed, and he had a very bad experience of this. And since he was a colonial police officer, so later he will explain these ideas of the imperial rule in a novel called Burmese Days, and in two autobiographical stories. The first one is called Shooting an Elephant, the other is called A Hanging, and both are classics of expository prose. And later, in 1936, Orwell left England to fight with the anti-fascist forces in the Spain Civil War. So his experiences with this war really helped him to find his political outlook, and he became a really strict socialist. So the war also provided him material for his book named Homage to Catalonia, wrote in 1938, where he gives or explains the imminent danger of totalitarianism in the future of Europe. And finally, in 1949, Orwell completed his novel named 1984. This is a novel where he is best known. He was also battling with tuberculosis. So once in 1949 that his book was completed, a year later he died. This is really sad, since this was the peak of his career. And finally, I would like to conclude with a quote given by V.S. Pritchett, in which he called Orwell, and I cite, "the wintry conscience of his generation." This is a reference to Orwell's signature reflection that he always gives in his works about honesty and intellectual freedom. And thank you for your attention.
The story takes place in Molmine, the capital of Burman. Burman is a country in Southeast Asia. Since the events of the story take place in 1936, it places these events right in the middle of the British rule over Burma. This rule lasted an impressive 124 years, from 1824 to 1948. The actual place where the events of the story take place is in the poor sector or quarter of Bremen. This poor quarter is described by the narrator as a labyrinth of squalid bamboo huts thatched with palm leaf, winding all over a steep hillside. So essentially, it's a hillside full of little huts, little close together houses that belong to the poor or lower class Bremen citizens.
Okay, so the character list for Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell is the British who react to the shooting. Then there is also the crowd of townspeople. There is the Indian constables. There is the Mahout, which is the owner of the elephant, who becomes very angry after learning that the narrator has killed his elephant. And this character is a skilled elephant trainer and handler. Then there is the police orderly, which is the person who gets the narrator the gun to shoot the elephant. Then there's also the Indian laborer who is killed by the elephant in the short story, and the sub-inspector, who is the officer who calls the narrator for help after the elephant gets loose in town. Finally, the most important character of all is the narrator, which is also George Orwell. He is the only named character in the short story. At the time the story takes place, Orwell is a subdivisional police officer in a British colony. And he is conflicted about the structure of the city. And he also hates the villagers who abuse him because of his role in the police force. Okay, so in To Shoot an Elephant, George Orwell is the main character, and he works as a subdivisional police officer of a town in the British colony of Burma. And since he works in the military, he is, in this case, hated by a large part of the village, and they never fully rebel to the police, but they frequently express their disgust towards him at every opportunity that they have. And this provokes Orwell to think okay, I hate the locals because of how they torment me, and at the same time, I really don't like the mistreatment towards the subjects from part of the empire. So Orwell thinks and considers the British Raj as a tyranny, and he believes that killing a villager, a troublesome villager, would bring him a very good joy. So one day there is an incident that marks the whole plot of the story, and it's an incident that the elephant in the village has escaped, and his only master, his Mahout, went looking for the elephant in the wrong direction. So he was now a very long distance away, and he could not get there in time. So Orwell is called, since he is the police, into the neighborhood where the elephant was last spotted. And the neighborhood's villagers tell him, he's done this, he's done that, and he has brought a lot of trouble to the neighborhood. And Orwell was thinking, this is probably fake. But suddenly he hears a noise, and he finds that a laborer, a person who was working, was lying dead in the mud, and he was crushed, and he was also skinned alive by this elephant. So Orwell concludes, okay, this is a real threat. Let's order my subordinate to bring me a gun strong enough to shoot that elephant, because he had only taken a smaller gun, and that would not work with an animal that size. So when the subordinate returns with the gun, locals reveal that the elephant is in a field nearby. So Orwell walks to the field, and a large group of people from the neighborhood follow him because they were excited to see what was going to happen. They wanted to see the elephant shot, and Orwell was starting to feel very uncomfortable because he was not planning to shoot the elephant. He only wanted to fix what was going on, but he had no intentions of actually shooting it. So the group comes with Orwell to the elephant in the field. He saw the elephant very peaceful, eating grass in the middle of the field, and Orwell looks okay, I really have no reason to shoot this elephant because it's done nothing, it's in peace, and it's only like living his best life. And after coming to that conclusion, Orwell looks around the crowd and he sees all these thousands of villagers excited, ready to see like death and bullets. And he thinks, okay, I only have the choice to actually kill him to shoot him because everyone's expecting me to shoot it. So Orwell thinks like, okay, the only way for me to avoid this embarrassment is to kill the beast. So he aims his gun and he shoots it where he thinks his brain is, and he fires, and the whole crowd is like, whoa, yes. And then the elephant like sinks to its knees and it begins to drool. But once again, the elephant is still standing, so Orwell fires again, and the elephant starts to look worse, but it still does not collapse. So he shoots for a third time, and the elephant falls, and he's on the ground, but he's still breathing. So he continues to fire, but the bullets do nothing. And the elephant is like in very obvious pain, and Orwell doesn't know what to do. So he takes his smaller gun that he brought originally and fires like some more bullets into its throat, and it still does nothing. So Orwell is like, he can't take it anymore, and he leaves the scene, and he later hears that the elephant took 1 hour and a half to die after he left. So it was in pain for a lot of time. And also the villagers like take the meat off of its bones, and Orwell realizes that his choice to kill the elephant was controversial, and he is glad that the elephant killed someone because it was a justification for his actions. In the short story, Orwell wonders if any of the people there understood that he only killed the elephant like to avoid looking embarrassed in front of everyone.
So George Orwell's tone in this story is very serious and reflective. You can see this while he's describing the situation of the Burmese prisoners. And you can, while he's describing these events, you can really see how the nature imperialism has, that in this case, as George Orwell describes, is brutal and horrible. It is also really emotive, and you can see this while he's describing the dying of the elephant. The tone, it is really personal, since while I was reading the story, I could notice how these events really affected him, how this connects with the biography that was already given. You can really see the strong connection that it has in the tone. So, and the style in this case is very effective. So George Orwell's style, I noticed, like straight to the point and short. Like he intentionally avoids the use of figurative language. And thank you for your attention.
So in this first story, I found 4 major themes, which are principles conflict, performance or entertainment, imperialism, and power. So for each one of these themes, I grouped some words that were throughout the text. And for imperialism, I have the words imperialism, empire, British Empire, etc. For principles conflict, expected, odd, pressing me forward, impress, and impression are some of the words. Then we got power with the words oppressor, suppressed, imposed, helpless, will, sahib, etc. And last, for performance and entertainment, which are jeer, laugh, shouting excitedly, perform, trick, lead actor, puppet, posing, and theater curtain. Now, for each one of these themes, we got quotes throughout the text. For the theme of principles conflict, we got a lot of quotes. He constantly says that he doesn't want to shoot the elephant, and if he borrowed the rifle, was not to shoot it, but to protect himself in case something happened, right? And the perfect quote for this is in page 17, and it says, "And suddenly I realized that I should have not to shoot the elephant after all. The people expected it from me, and I had got to do it. I could feel the 2,000 wheels pressing me forward, irresistibly. So we have this conflict of him saying that, well, I don't want to shoot the elephant, but I must if I don't want to look like a fool. And the people, the Burmese people, got this thing of shooting an elephant like something really hilarious and amusing. And for example, George Orwell says that he felt like he was murdering, right? And well, we got a quote for that in page 18 that says they were going to have their bit of fun after all. For power, also in page 18, we got a quote, futility of the white man's dominion in the East, right? And for imperialism, we got the following quote, right? That is, I thought of the British Raj as an unbreakable tyranny, as something clamped down, in secula secularum, upon the will of posterity people. And secula secularum is a word in Latin, which means through the time, right? And well, these both quotes of power and imperialism go together. Because, well, we know that imperialism goes as from taking control of a land that it is originally not part of your territory. And well, we got the example of India. In India, we got Indian rulers, right? We got the Indian princess and princess, and well, they ruled with the rules of the British Empire. This is something that I think we should clarify because of the thesis that come right next. So, now, thesis. For each one of my teams, as I previously mentioned, I got a matching thesis in order to give justification. And for example, for the thesis, the first two theses that I got go related with imperialism and with performance and entertainment. So the imperialism quote is found on the page 18 of the PDF, and it says something like this. When the white man turns tyrant, it is his own freedom that he destroys. And well, this goes with what I was saying of imperialism, right? That, well, you rule over a land that is not yours, and you have a ruler that is part of that land, right? So, you must keep content and happy the people there, because if you don't keep them in good spirits, then they can riot against you. And this is what this race means, right? Being a tyrant, a white man there in Burma, means that you, as people, should do what it was expected from you, right? So you lose your freedom of making decisions, right? You are restricted. Our next thesis, that is quote, also on page 18. Seemingly the leading actor of the piece, but in reality, I was only an absurd puppet. And it was because it seemed like he was really confident and it was his resolve to shoot the elephant, right? But we know that is not. He was impulsed. He was pushed on by the people in order to kill the elephant. So in this case, he was not doing this because he wanted to do it, but because of the people. He was like the puppet, right? All the Burmese people were controlling him in order to kill the elephant. And wow, that has just been covered. Now we talk about the last two themes. We got principles, conflict, and power. Well, the thesis for principles, conflict is a thesis that I made by myself, and it says people are pushed to make things they don't want to by the crowd. And well, this is what happened to Orwell. Yes, he didn't want to kill the elephant again, but he was pushed, he was forced to do it. As he was saying, that is what happens in imperialism. Here's another quote that I'm gonna use, right? He said, he shall spend his life in trying to impress the natives, right? Because he got to appear resolute, to know his own mind and do definite things. Yes? So, this is kind of related with everything. And well, and last, power. Power, the quote I got for power is in page 19. And it says, it seemed dreadful to see the great beast lie there, powerless to move yet powerless to die. And not even to be able to finish him, right? So, power, I like to see that power, it is not just related with the dominion, right, of a country over another, of being oppressed or being the oppressor. It also talks about the will power, right? The power of taking your decisions and sticking to your principles. Because we know that George Orwell For example, I think this phrase goes with the willpower. So it's connected with power and with principles conflict. Because if you see it, he was the great beast lying there, right? Powerless to moving yet powerless to dying. Because he could not stick to his principles. He could not move, right? Yeah, but his principles didn't die. Throughout the story, their principles were there. His principles were there, right? They were keep on appearing and saying, don't kill the elephant, don't kill the elephant. But this was so much for him, and he had to kill it in order to not look like a fool.
Symbols are essential for literature because it's a way that authors convey a message to the readers. That being said, this story is not an exception. These are the number 5, the Dravidian Coolie, Imperialism, the British Man, the Bourbons, and of course, the elephant. As you may recall, there's a part in the story where the narrator asked for an elephant rifle because he wants to defend himself in case the elephant attacks. What he receives is, of course, the rifle and 5 cartridges, or bullets. Now, why I've decided to say this is a symbol is because 5 is the symbol of humanity. Humans have 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 senses, and 5 limbs. Now, the relationship I found here is that it took 5 bullets or shots for the narrator to commit an inhuman act, which was to shoot the elephant. The second symbol is the Dravidian Coolie. This is a representation of the lower class and the marginalization their members suffer. The Dravidian Coolie I'm talking about is the one that was killed, the only man that was killed by the elephant before it itself was killed as well. The narrator describes the dead body as something graphically horrible. Discussion broke out within the European community regarding the death of the elephant. While older men are in agreement with the narrator that it was good that the elephant was killed, young men differ. Young men say that it was a shame that the elephant was killed because it was just the life of and I quote, a damn coolie, and that it was worth way less than that of an elephant's. Now, this shows clear marginalization from young European men toward the lower class, as if their lives mattered less than that of an elephant's. The third symbol I found is imperialism, which in this case would be British imperialism. This can be seen in the way that the Burmese prisoners are treated, like animals in a sense, because they are locked in cages, they are beaten, and they are enslaved. These, of course, are inhuman conditions, which again reinstates that imperialism is evil. The fourth symbol I found is the British men. Now, in the story, they are represented as tyrants, whose mission is to do what the natives expect them to do. What I mean by natives is the Burmese people. What this basically means is that they have no freedom because they're just looking for approval from the natives. For this, I'd like to quote a passage in the story that says, "When the white man turns tyrant, it is his own freedom that he destroys." I like to say another quote that says, "He wears a mask and his face grows to fit it." This mask that the quote refers to can be seen as the way that the British people try to be in order to impress or not be criticized by the Burmese people. But the thing is that they wear this mask so much that they become sort of this way of being. The narrator himself calls the British man hollow, posing dummies, a puppet pushed to and fro by the will of the yellow face behind. The yellow face behind in this case would be the Burmese people. So it's as if the men lose themselves trying to please or to comply to the way of being of the Burmese people, to be respected. That's their goal. The narrator himself is a clear example of this because he didn't want to shoot the elephant, but because of the pressure and to not make a fool of himself, he in the end, did it. Moving on, the fifth symbol are the Burmans. They are represented as bad people. Lower class Burmans, which are the ones that witness the elephant killing, are represented as morbid people. This is because they seem to quite enjoy watching the elephant being murdered. They enjoyed watching the elephant suffer and skinned it alive afterwards. On the other hand, upper class Burmans are represented as hateful people because they mock and bully the British people in the city whenever they have a chance. Examples in the story are that they, of course, bother a lot the main character, the narrator, and they jeer at other police officers, and it's mentioned also that they spit at British women who are walking the streets alone. The last symbol I found, or the most important one at least, is the elephant. Elephants represent strength, power, and peace. Now, analyzing the elephant in this story, it could be said that it was quite strong because even though it was shot with 5 bullets, it clearly didn't die. As for the peaceful trait, it wasn't really doing anything to anybody when it was shot. I noticed that these are complete opposite traits of the main character or the narrator himself. While the elephant was strong, he was weak because he complied to the wishes of the Burmese crowd about killing the elephant. He wasn't strong enough to follow his own will. And he's the complete opposite of being peaceful because he used the rifle to shoot 5 times the elephant. And not only that, he left it to die being skinned alive by the Burmese crowd. Another way the elephant can be seen is it's something that exposes the real, the true self of the citizens. It exposes the narrator as someone weak who seeks approval, and it exposes Burmans as inhuman people who morbidly like to watch violence, and that it also excites them. The narrator himself says that this whole experience showed him the nature of imperialism. So if we go back to imperialism being evil, yes, it is, because the people behind it and inside it are evil. The elephant brings out the nature of imperialism to light.
Well, so first of all, the first topic from this guide is identities. So, as we might know after reading the essay, the main character was born in Britain, as it's implied in the text, but he now lives in Lower Burma. He's a policeman, young and ill-educated, as quoted from the essay, and he is mocked by Burmese people. They laugh at him. He cannot talk with them correctly. What I mean by this is that they don't take him seriously. They don't see him as an authority. As he is living in a foreign country, he's young. He still needs to discover himself and create his identity. He will be influenced by the where he's living, his social context. A great problem from this essay is that when he's young and discovering his identity, but he does not believe in the British Empire. What I mean by this is that the British Empire is unjust, is unfair when treating the people from Burma, and even the main character says that British Empire is devilish, that he has seen bad things happen. The main problem is that he cannot identify himself with the Burmese people, because even though he is on their side, even though he believes that they are right, these people won't accept him because of the fact that he comes from the British Empire, and this could cause him major identity problems, as he is not able to identify with a culture. This could cause him not to develop correctly his identity. And I think that what the author tries to portray is what living in a foreign country is, what not being able to identify with a culture, not being comfortable in a certain place. Passing to the second topic, it is social organization. So in here, this is a hierarchy where he is above the people, and yet he is not respected by them. So there is no actual social organization here. It is unorganized, and well, that would be the second connection. So, as we might know, imperialism refers to acquiring by means of power a certain territory, land, or country, and making it part from your own country or your own empire. In this case, as its name says so, imperialism. So, well, as we might have noticed in this essay, it's located on Malmö, a city from Lower Burma, which used to be a British Empire colony, and this means that the British Empire, an empire, conquered this land, referring to Burma, and made it theirs. So in this case, it's the same thing as the concept of imperialism. British Empire is the one who, by means of power, conquers the territory of Burma and makes it theirs. The protagonist is an Englishman which was born on Britain, it can be inferred, and then he was placed in Lower Burma to represent the authority of the British Empire as a policeman. And well, that would be the connection.
George Orwell gave us an essay, but not just any essay. He gave us one where British imperialism is viewed from a critical standpoint.